Hello everyone and welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. My name is Stefan and I welcome you to my fish room. I'm standing just outside of it now in my home here in Chicago, and I'm going to give you guys a bit of a tour for spring, summer, and it's been a minute since I've done something like that. So here we go. This room is about the size of a den in a typical home, you know, a bedroom, I suppose, but it's in the center of my apartment here, which is very unusual for a fish room for many reasons. But architecturally speaking, there's literally 3 doorways into it, not including the one I'm going to spin pan over to now, which is the actual door to the fire escape here in Chicago. And back before the building yelled at me, I used to do my water changes right out there, just siphon the water down and through the fire escape to the ground. But I was chastised for doing so no longer. This is the rack system to the left of the fish room. What a great purchase this is. I cannot tell you how much I value having this tool in my fish room. It's so much more than just a display rack. Obviously it is that, with about 500 pounds per shelf load, and it's beautiful in its own industrial way. It's this one is black metal. Obviously they come in different color schemes, gray or green, and probably some others as well, but for my purposes, black is great. I put these excellent black plastic from Tap Plastics. Look them up. It's not plastic, it's another material, even more durable and sleek. And I had those pieces cut for me and sent, and it was reasonable. And oh my God, the return on investment. Every spill, which happens all the time, is so easy to just clean up. And then different things like my filters and rocks, not to mention the aquarium itself, all of that safe and secure on a flat level surface. Man, oh man, between the rack system and those Tap Plastic shelf covers, best thing I ever did for the fish room. And if you're gonna have multiple tanks, you should seriously consider it too. On the top rack, I've got my collection of aquarium memorabilia and nostalgic items from the hobby's past. You see old fish tanks like that glass one from the 20s or the Depression era, called a battery tank because it's shaped like a battery. I've got a Jewel aquarium, which is actually a Chicago manufacturer. That particular fish tank back there I've seen on Etsy for over $5,000. Oh my God. Apparently they only made a few thousand in total, and that's one of them. I love the graphics on this old aquarium stuff. This is just before my time, probably from the early 60s. And you see Dynaflow. I do remember that particular filter. I never used Wunderbar fish food flakes, but that girl seems to be in ecstasy over them. I've got old ceramic bubblers that you could use in your fish tank for aeration. What cool little pieces of art to help adorn your fish room. Here's a couple of vintage fishermen that my daughters got me for Father's Day, which is coming up for those of my children who might be watching this video. I've got some old fishing lures. I mean, the point being, yes, I totally love growing plants outside of the aquarium to support my hobby and the overall look and aesthetic, but I also think you can go beyond that and maybe put sticks and rocks and things for a display. In this case, I've got a little bit of both. There's some driftwood back there, and it really was fun to collect this stuff. On the rack system, another invaluable aspect to it is how easy it is to hang all your tools in an organized and practical way, so you don't have to be either leaving them lying around as well as having to put them away and take them out. Magnets are your best friend. You can buy the circular magnets. I use them all over my fish room, as well as these simple hooks which can be got at the dollar store. There's some more of these fun decorations. That is a smaller Oase canister which I use as we move to this tank with that onerous reflection. I'm gonna solve for that in real time as I film. Watch. Magic. It still sucks, but better. This is the 12-gallon bookshelf aquarium, super heavily planted. I did a video on this when I was just a couple weeks back. Super excited to announce that not only had my clown killies spawned, and you see a couple of them right there. If you look twice, there's 3, there's 4. The babies are up at the top, hard to find. But my dwarf pencilfish, or Nanostomus marginatus, they also spawned. And so I found a couple. I actually have counted 3 since I found 2 before. 3 juvenile-sized dwarf pencilfish. I'm trying to find where one might be, but maybe they're in the back somewhere. There's a juvenile right there. See, so that's a young pencilfish. The adults are twice that size and more robust. So very excited to have discovered that in this fish tank. You can see all the growth up top. A lot of that is the immersed form of Rotala. I don't know the exact species, and then pothos, among other plants. Moving down is the 32-gallon long aquarium that primarily features Livebearers at this point, and an incredible array of plants. A lot of people think this is their favorite tank, at least if I can tabulate the comments I get over time. This one generally rises to the top. Livebearers are very popular but underrated amongst the serious aquascapers because of their boisterous, prolific nature and their commonness, I suppose. But this red and black motif is super exciting in this aquarium. And while I'm always trying to deal with population growth, overpopulation, it's a good problem to have. The plants are doing marvelous in this fish tank, which surprises me, but now I kind of know why. I used a clay-based substrate underneath. So this is UNS contrasoil right there, and some reddish hued gravel. But beneath that, in a lot of the tank, is a clay-based substrate from Oliver Knott, and I really think it's made a world of difference in general. I do put CO2 into this tank, but it's dispersed from all the way back there and pushed by the outflow. And while I do see green in the spot checker, that's not always consistent. So I attribute the success of these plants sure to the light, which, by the way, another awesome feature of this rack. I didn't use the complicated hanging system. I just took the cords that came with the light and sort of wrapped them through any one of those bars or attachment spaces. There's so many ways you could utilize this rack to make your life easier and more sweet. And I did that by hanging the light from there, just discounting the directions that came with the hanging kit and doing my thing. You see I have plants inside and outside of this aquarium, and this is at eye level when I sit down. This one's eye level when I stand. And obviously up there is a hard reach, which is why there's no fish tanks. Now at ground level is an interesting array of trio, if you will. I've got my super natural, all natural cheap little Petco 5.5 gallon fish tank here with hornwort, dragonstone, and Anubias. And there's a lively group of celestial pearl danios and a bajillion shrimp. There's also some small juvenile plecostomus in here and dwarf coreodoras. It's lit again. I hung an even a cheap Haiger light, a great value. I used my own ingenuity, those little hooks from the dollar store, and hung it on a slight diagonal to push the light back and along the flow of this pothos. And then an even cheaper light. This is just one of those, you can't even really see it, but between, right there, between the glass lid, which is never fully shut, is a really simple LED strip that I bought on Amazon. It's from a no-name vendor. This aquarium's doing really well, by the way. It's got a sponge filter, the only fish tank in my fish room that uses a sponge filter. Moving over here, a lot more intricate setup. This is my partial Blackwater tank. It has a UNS Atmos background light, which creates all sorts of wonderful color opportunities for the back. I always end up going to the sunset amber color because I feel it picks up on the sepia tones from the botanicals. I've got super fat neon tetras in here and some licorice gourami, dwarf coreodoras, neocaridina shrimp, and some of, if you can see them silhouetted in the roots there, Morse code tetras. So quite a bit of fish in here, but I've not had any problems with regard to having a heavy population in this tank, and really in all my tanks. And that's a theme in my fish room. I do have and am guilty of overpopulation, but I manage my fish room with pet shop diligence. I'm got my hands in the tank, as the slogan on my channel goes, and I'm always working to make sure that these big populations are as healthy as they can be. This tank gets more live food than any other for those licorice gouramis, but these little piggy neons get a lot of it, which is definitely the reason they're so chubby. Over here is the newest fish tank. This is UNS's 25T, so it's a 5 gallon but tall. So think of it as if you took this 5 gallon and turned it on its side. It's essentially the shape here. Right now it's all about high-tech plants. I'm trying to grow the Hygrophila chai, that pink plant there. I've got Rotala and Super Red. What a wonderful bunch of Hydrocolte Japan right there. I used a little lead, one of those lead weights that stores give you at the bottom of stem plants, but I used it to weigh down just a few strands of that Japanese clover, and it created over time and with manicure this wonderful puffball. I've got Blixa japonica, the taller plant on the ground, and then this is dwarf hairgrass. I do feed CO2 in this tank, but I've only got a cheap little HOB there, just like I only have a cheap little HOB here. You have to fiddle with them and clean the floss all the time, but it's a lot easier than a sponge, or excuse me, not than a sponge, but than a canister. Oh, and by the way, I did a short on these. These are these wonderful little plastic print-on-demand moss holders. They come in different shapes and sizes. Look at how well it grows that moss. I've got a piece of the Hygrophila chai in there to see if it is easier to root up there. But look at that. From top to bottom, it's completely lush and green with zero algae. I love these things. Now I only need to know what the hell do I do with all these wonderful clumps of moss which I'm cultivating. But for the time being, it just adds another layer into these heavily planted tanks. And it looks good. I mean, it looks good. It doesn't look janky. So let's get up from here. We pan across. You see my collection of aquarium literature from the past and present, some tools, some extra rocks, just things. I try to organize it in these wonderful sort of ashen colored boxes that I got at, what is it, the Container Store. You know, they're a little bit more than a dollar store type of thing. They're a little bit more than plastic containers like that. And then, Lord knows I got plenty of those. But they're what my eye sees every single day and night, so I want it to be cool. Got some fun pen plaques that really, what I call crap-tacular aquarium stuff, junk that kids would put into their fish tanks. I love this stuff. I wouldn't put it in a beautifully planted tank unless it had sentimental value or a specific purpose, which I've seen some of you do, and I think that's awesome. But I love that stuff just because of how it celebrates the infancy of the hobby by our own juvenile desires to set up a guppy tank or a goldfish bowl, that sort of thing. You see some driftwood and rocks and things down at the bottom. Because it's a working fish room. I can't do water changes all the time with the Python system, so I'm always keeping dechlorinated water in 2 different size containers for top offs, which when you have nothing but open top aquariums, evaporation happens all the time. But I've got a system. That's Elmo, one of my 2 dogs. What's Dad doing, huh? Why does he like those fish more than me? Well, that's not true. You're part of the family. The fish is my hobby. Up over here, this is the Oase scaper kit. They're now available in the United States. You get the aquarium, this really cool stand, which has a bunch of nifty features that I won't go into, but I know they're carrying this line with all that comes with it now in your better local fish stores. I've done a lot of work to this tank, and it's not in its full flower yet. I took out all the plants in the back. In earlier videos I talk about that, and I either replanted a lesser amount of them or got rid of them altogether. And now I've got, to the right, Limonphilia sessiflora, Ludwigia repens, Ludwigia super red, a little bit of Rotala orange juice, and then Pogo stem and octopus. In a 20-gallon tank, that's maybe one aisle too many, and I'm probably just going to remove that Rotala and expand the super red, which is my new favorite plant for obvious reasons. It's super red, and it's easy. In the mid-ground, I've got Anubias, Bushaphilandra, and Crypticorn. The CO2 and the Chihiro's light really bring out the stunning reds and textures of that Crypticorn. Pretty amazing. What an easy plant to grow, but maybe not as cool looking as this if you grow it low tech. You see the Anubias petite is doing terrific. There's one of the stars of this aquarium. There's 2 of them, the long fin albino Coreodoras. They're always out and about, belying the reputation for this fish being shy. Not the case with mine. Looks like one of these Bucephalandras has either got a new leaf or a potential flower there. That beautiful pink protuberance. This is a baby dwarf tiger lotus that was created in one of my larger tanks, and I moved it from the larger tank and just set the bulb into the dwarf hairgrass, and so far so good. It might not take, I don't know, but I put it in there. I've got another one of these awesome holders. You see how the magnet does it? I just wrapped some moss that I pulled from here and there with thread, a little drop of crazy glue to keep the thread intact, and within 2 weeks I had something as great looking as this, and it stays great looking. It doesn't get janky. You see this cherry shrimp agrees with me. By the way, there are a lot of fish in here that you cannot see. That's the Achilles heel of this tank, except in certain circumstances. The green neon tetras, the gold tetras, and the Bexford pencilfish. Look how fat that female is. She's been egg bound forever. They're not as shy. They will come out a lot. Followed second by these glorious brass tetras, so underrated. Brass tetra or gold tetra. And then the green neon tetras, aquascaper's favorite, but too shy for my liking, but there they are, and they're gonna stay there. I just did a video on this glorious 2.0 or 3.0 on this fish tank, the ADA aquarium. It's a 60H, I believe, so it's their 20-gallon high version, and that means you get a couple extra gallons. It being a tall aquarium, it just is a neat footprint. Kind of looks like the shape and size of a TV set, which if this were a den, that's where the TV would be, right there, because my chair with Elmo is right here, and this is right in front of it. So much to talk about in this tank. I'm not going to belabor this video with that. A very recent video covers it in more detail. I urge you to just look in the toolbar for this aquarium picture in a thumbnail. Fun wallpaper with these, they're not freshwater. They might not even really be saltwater fish, but an artist's depiction, and so cool. Thank you, my wife, for finding that for me. I've got some old aquarium art here. This is from the turn of the century. Kind of cool that they were even thinking of keeping a planted tank back then, but maybe they would have to rethink some of these fish choices. I see a paradise fish and a goldfish, so and then let's start there with things that are problematic. These are old matchbooks from the 50s. These are from the United Kingdom. Cigarette manufacturers would create these to draw people to their brands, and those are aquarium fish, freshwater aquarium fish. There you see one of the doorways to the bedroom area of our home. This other doorway here is to the kitchen, and then this one takes us to the dining room. And I just showed you the dining room display tank in all its glory. You can find that within the next, in the last couple videos. And I did 20 minutes just on this tank in this exact condition with all these wonderful, glorious creatures, both plants and fish and invertebrates. Look at the way the light just plays off of everything. Those are Kessels that create the shimmer. Kessels are an expensive aquarium light, but unlike even a Chihiros or a Twin Star, when you use these hanging Kessels and other manufacturers, I think one called AI, you get a shimmer effect that you just won't get with a standard LED, no matter how good it is. This is the cabinet that was custom made to fit this 135-gallon aquarium. So moving back into the fish room, I want to show you, you might be thinking, hey, this guy's fish room's pretty tidy given all the life that's in here and given how complicated fish keeping is. And you'd be right, and I've talked about this a ton. If you've got a fish room in your main area of living and you've got a wife or a partner, and in my case, one that's an interior designer, you are just not allowed to make a mess. And you know what? I think it keeps me honest and on my toes and helps me to remain vigilant, as this fish room brings me a great deal of pleasure. And if it was a pigsty, it wouldn't, and I wouldn't be my wife wouldn't be happy, and ergo neither would my life. This is one of the leather jackets. I collect leather jackets. This is a vintage Shot Perfecto full of fun patches and medals and things of that nature. Forgot to mention, I've got a little sphere down here where I'm growing some cuttings, Rotala and Bacopa, and seeing what will happen. I put some of the emerged growth from the bookshelf tank underwater to see what it would look like when it became into its submerged state. And here is why my fish room is not a mess, because I've got a really ample closet, which is the fourth door in this little room. And behind it, I keep all my fish keeping stuff in as neat a way as possible. I'm also raising grindle worms and potato beetle larvae in here. If you're interested in how I do that, I could always devote time to making a video, but there's some already online. I love feeding live foods, so baby brine shrimp almost 24/7 I'm making. By the way, I use the Zis, which is at the far right lower corner there. It is currently not producing, but that's only temporarily so I could film, not add it. That makes a bubbly noise, so detracts from the ability to film, especially with just an iPhone. You gotta have a storage area. I use 90% of this for aquarium stuff. I use these cabinets that come with some of the tanks, and I've got an old dresser here, all of that devoted, well, 90%. I've got certain important documents and other personal items in there, and I keep the tax forms, but the old tax buckets or bins are in that closet, but other than that, it's all fish supplies. So what do you all think? I know some people who are not in the hobby, they raise their eyebrows and go, what? Don't you want to just watch football games and have a man cave? And I'm like, nope, kind of a nerd. I can watch football games on my computer or in the living room. But this room is my room. It's also my family's room. I showed you how they walk to and fro from all these avenues. There hasn't been a single mishap. No one's tripped or fell or knocked into a fish tank. Knock on wood, because that would suck, and definitely was something I was concerned about when I chose this area, or this area chose me. Didn't have a lot of options in this apartment for where to put a fish room / den. For those of you design buffs, there's a sort of aquatic inspired, really cool chandelier, if you will. Kind of looks like an octopus or a spider. So everything here has been thoughtfully considered to bring me joy and pleasure, to transcend being mere eye candy, but sustenance for the soul, keeping me happy and serene-ish in a chaotic world, allowing my second half of life to be filled with the joys and passions I had as a child, and keeping me curious about nature and science and biology, all things that have interested me since I entered this world, and I'm able to realize them more so than ever as I navigate the fish world, and I get to share it with you. So thank you for coming, and as always, keep your hands in the tank, and ciao for now.